When it comes to professional wrestling, if you are talking about it, we are talking about it. Welcome to the Wrestle Chat Podcast with the Ant-Man.
Royal Rumble morning. Here we are. Whenever and wherever you're taking in episode 43 of the Wrestle Chat Podcast, we want to say thank you. I'm your host, the Ant-Man, Michael Glavin, back in. Happy Royal Rumble Day, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'll tell you what, man. The feeling of the day is palpable. It's in the air.
It's good, yeah.
Smell WrestleMania season kicking off. And man, this is just... If you go back on my Instagram, for anybody that's watching that follows me on Instagram, you can literally go back and see every WrestleMania and Royal Rumble for the last couple of years, because I always post about it on the day of, because it's just so exciting. And so I'm super stoked to be here again with you this week. After a quiet couple of weeks in the wrestling world, we had a heck of a week and a lot to dive into.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. For the past couple of weeks, we've opened up the show saying for a slow week in wrestling, quite a bit has happened. And I would say that this week has put inactivity of previous weeks to shame. So much to dive into today. And listen, we're not going to make you drink from a fire hose, even though that would be possible with this show today. Here's what we are going to run over. Obviously, we're going to run down our thoughts on the Royal Rumble tonight. Let's talk about a new TKO board member. We'll talk about CM Punk and Cody Rhodes and their face-off on Monday, and maybe discuss what $5 billion will buy you. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. First, I want to give a shout out to Michael Mendez. Michael is going to be watching every single WWE premium live event, starting with tonight's Royal Rumble and all the ones in 2024 on us with a 1-year subscription to Peacock Premium. Congratulations, Michael, and appreciate you being a part of Wrestle Chat each and every week. All right, let's get this thing rolling with Dwayne The Rock, now owning The Rock Johnson, now on the TKO board. What a life. This dude was, if you look back on it, cut from the Canadian Football League, sent home with $7 in his pocket, well documented on all of that. Then, became a very successful wrestler, became a massive actor, the owner of the XFL and now the UFL, to, for all intents and purposes, walking side by side with Triple H to lead WWE and all of TKO into the future. This is huge. I wasn't expecting Rock news in this fashion on Tuesday morning. How about you, Michael?
When they're dropping breadcrumbs, a lot of times in the moment we don't see them. You're going to tell me that we've seen The Rock more in the last 2 to 3 months than we have in a decade, and then all of a sudden he turns around and is on the board. So it makes sense when we look at the run up to that announcement of him being around some more. But the good news is, now that he's on the board, odds are we're probably going to see him around maybe a little bit more than we did before, but obviously he's still a really busy guy. But from a business standpoint, who better to have on a board to oversee TKO? And he's proven himself to be such an adept businessman in a lot of things that he's doing. And it's interesting because, we see the phases of Dwayne Johnson, as you already pointed out, but it seems like now, while he's not going to stop acting or anything like that per se, it seems that he's moving into that business part of later life where he's investing and doing all these things from an owner-operator type level rather than as a talent. And so it's a cool thing to see him involved back in TKO WWE as a permanent fixture. And like you said, between him and Triple H, it makes you feel really good about what the future holds.
Well, let's think back to that Attitude Era. I mean, that was a huge time. You'd see these two guys battle it out, and it felt like oftentimes laying in real solid punches on each other. If they weren't, they were super close. And now you've got, would you ever imagined those two guys leading Vince McMahon's company into the future the way they are right now? I knew they were huge stars. They were going to go off and do big things and continue to win more championships. But to see where both, they really kind of split, went different directions, and now are back together and what they're doing together, I don't think I've said this before here on this podcast. I don't think I've been more excited about professional wrestling than I am right here today.
Yep. And it's interesting because I think if you would have asked anybody, even just a few short years ago, this is not what you would have envisioned as the plan. But what's interesting is making a Marvel reference. It's almost like a multiverse version of it, because you still have all these people involved, but it's just set up a little differently than you thought it was. And, playfully between those two guys, I wonder if there's a little bit of a rub because, Triple H was on the board for WWE prior to the sale merger, and now you've got one of his biggest rivals of his entire career sitting on the board that he's no longer a part of. So for two retired guys, it sounds like there could be some storyline there.
Well, I think that also, realistically, I think you've got a guy who wants to be involved in WWE programming each and every day, the ins and the outs, who's doing well, who needs improvement, who's moving on, who's moving up. That is Triple H, and that's what he does really, really well. Mm-hmm. What Rock does really, really well is what Rock's role is on the TKO board, which I think we as fans, I would love to explore that and see where that might go. If Triple H could wrestle again, I would like to see where that explored. I think in real life, they're right on the same playing field, one doing his thing and operating in his strengths and the other guy doing the same thing as 100%. Well. One of the big things that The Rock got out of this was he got the rights and the trademark to The Rock. I honestly believe that he already either owned it or at least shared it with WWE, but to now out and out own it, this is huge. Just on a licensing front. Now Dwayne Johnson owns The Rock, and anything with The Rock on it from here on out is all his.
Yep. I think it's yet another sign of the transition from the Vince McMahon era to the TKO era.
Yeah,
in that, it's been talked about for many, many years, the ownership, the brand identity. I remember there was a John Cena interview on Howard Stern many, many years ago while Cena was still in the pocket week in and week out. And Howard Stern asked him, so what's your real name? And John's like, what are you talking about? And John Cena's my name. And wait, so do you get to keep everything? He's like, nope, Vince owns everything that I am in my name. And he gave a lot of credit to Vince. He's like, Vince made me everything I am, so why shouldn't he get a cut of my name? Which, I totally agree with. But the guy owned a name that was the given name of a human being. Yep. And so I wonder if this is a step where we're going to see more people coming into the WWE under their established independent names, and then maybe even retaining some amount of rights or cutting licensing deals. It definitely blows the door open for more possibilities. So definitely shocking on multiple levels. Number one, that Dwayne didn't have it already. Number two, that it's kind of unprecedented for the WWE. So interesting stuff all around.
The original name, image, likeness deal between guys like that and WWE. A part of that announcement as well, we're not going to dig too far into it. I mean, this is not a business show, but part of that announcement was included in the festivities on Tuesday, the announcement of WWE's 10-year, $5 billion deal with Netflix. And that starts up in January of next year. First, I assume you have Netflix, right, already?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what this does because I don't remember a time in streaming that I haven't had Netflix. Right. So for it to say that it could, or how's it going to affect the increase in subscriptions, I find a little secondary. Like, if you don't have Netflix, why? What? At some point, I assume that you did, because I just assume it's like Kleenex. I mean, I think I heard one of the guys on Busted Open this week was talking about, like, it has its own saying. You don't have a Peacock and chill. You don't have Amazon and chill, you have Netflix and chill. It is the Kleenex of the streaming world. So to be able to do this does actually do a lot of things in the business world when it comes to streaming and sports, which, like I said, we're not going to really get into all that. There are other podcasts that do all that stuff. But what I think is interesting about all this is that whole deal with Netflix kicks off in January. Mm-hmm. The deal with USA Network ends at the end of September. We've got 3 months that we don't know where we're going to get our Raw. Do you have any ideas?
I don't. And honestly, I hadn't even thought that far ahead or aligned to those dates. And so, I'm sure they're going to give it to us one way or another. I don't think USA is going to balk at a minor extension, or Netflix picks up early, or, different things like that. But to interject, again, I don't want to go too deep into it, but since you brought it up, if you're thinking in context of subscriber counts for the continental US, I think you're exactly right. But the biggest thing that a lot of people overlooked in the headlines is Netflix is carrying not only Monday Night Raw, but all WWE content for everyone outside of the continental US.
Yep.
And with the massive growth that WWE is seeing, internationally, I think you're going to see a huge bump in subscriber count, because they are the WWE network still lives and exists outside of the continental US
right now.
And so right now. Yeah. And so you're going to, once that shuts down, you're going to see all those people migrate over to Netflix that may or may not have it already. But just an unprecedented deal, and it paves the way for a lot of things that could change over the next 3 to 5 years. We could see NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, all moving to streaming only platforms, based on the success of what a lot of people are calling the beginning of the end for TV.
Yep, I agree. And I'm looking forward to see where all of this goes. And I love that professional wrestling is leading the way, as they really did for sports in general, as we have now with over-the-top programming and streaming. So Royal Rumble coming up tonight. Of course, Royal Rumble is the beginning of the road to WrestleMania. Or did that road start on Monday Night Raw? We're going to talk about some of that coming up here next on the Wrestle Chat podcast. We'll be right back. Hey, I got a question for you. Is one of your New Year resolutions to travel more in 2024? I want to see if we can't help you out with that. That's by hooking you up with my exclusive offer from the Chase Southwest Visa. Sign up over at WrestleChatPodcast.com/sponsors, and you can earn 50,000 points. That's enough in most instances for 2 round-trip tickets. That could cover your airfare to the Royal Rumble, or maybe WrestleMania 40, or many other premium live events all over the U.S. Or maybe you even have a dream of going to Hawaii. It could cover that too. Plus, you earn more points with every dollar you spend on your Chase Southwest Visa. Some restrictions apply. You can get all the details, though, over at WrestleChatPodcast.com/sponsors. Earn 50,000 points today and check travel off your bucket list in 2024. That's WrestleChatPodcast.com/sponsors. So on Monday Night Raw, I remember texting you, Michael, saying I had a feeling from the beginning of the night when Gunther came out to confront Seth that something felt, kind of off. Almost like something was being reset, or at least that's how the feeling I was having while I was watching. Like, this still feels like a great show. It just feels a little different, like they're doing something different tonight than they have before, and I can't really pinpoint it. Then the interaction between Cody and Punk almost solidified that feeling for me. Let's start with CM Punk and Cody and talk about that. The first shot came from CM Punk. It looked to be, a cordial conversation, and almost to the point of you're wondering where this is going to go. Is this going to be a sappy promo from CM Punk? He's talking about Cody's dad. What are we doing here? But then the first shot from CM Punk saying, "I'm more American Dream than you are." You had a dad that was in the spotlight. He was famous. People recognized him on the street. My dad, he was an electrician. I'm more American Dream than you are. That's when you got the ooze from the crowd. Then the second shot, referring to the pipe bomb promo from CM Punk, Cody says, "What you talked about in the pipe bomb promo, I did. That makes me more CM Punk than you." Then the next shot, of course, this is the one that made me think, okay, hang on, this is odd. And I'll get to that in a minute. But he said, here you are. CM Punk said, here you are around the corner from the biggest moment of your entire life, complete with the cover of the brand new video game, which I believe is on sale soon. You can get it. But wait, who's that walking up? It's a much bigger star coming in to steal your spotlight. And he pauses because I'm pretty sure that he knew that everybody was thinking, yeah, The Rock. And he goes, no, I'm talking about me. To me, this felt like the start of a WrestleMania build. But wait, isn't Cody supposed to face Roman at WrestleMania? Of course, that's what we've all thought. It's going to, inevitably, everything is going to lead to Cody finishing the story at WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. There were first, I've got some other stuff to get into with Sports Illustrated and some of the things they said, but what were your thoughts when they bumped into each other, stared down, and they went to commercial? When that was all said and done on Raw on Monday, what were your thoughts about that promo?
First of all, great work by both guys. I mean, the storytelling involved, the weaving in and out of reality and storyline, just absolute fantastic. CM Punk with the gold medal out of the exchange by weaving in a 10-year long story of him being overshadowed by someone else coming in. So just absolute fantastic work. After that, I felt the same thing you did with not fully knowing or understanding what I was seeing on Monday night. Even referencing the stare down with Gunther and Seth Rollins, felt like we went into a martini shaker and just kind of, shook everything up. And, at the moment, what I would probably say is there's been too much hype around specific matches over the last year that I would have a hard time believing we're going to abandon a lot of those concepts. So I guess part of me is hoping that we're just going ahead and laying groundwork for things that, threads that will go from now through WrestleMania and that will not end at WrestleMania. So setting up feuds that take over or just weaving in and out of different storylines simultaneously. We've gotten used to such linear booking in WWE, like, the only people that exist right now is Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, and nobody else matters in the world at all. So it's possible for people to have beef with more than one person at a time. And so hopefully we start to see the formation of whatever the plan is. I can't say I'm not a little nervous, though. There's a lot of big players in the game. We know what we want to see this year, but the real question is, are we going to get it?
Well, I mentioned this last week and maybe the week before that if this had been, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I would be nervous. I feel a lot of trust with those that are making decisions right now because it might not be what we think we want, but I do have confidence that if it's not what we want, it's going to be better than what we wanted.
Yeah.
And that's my hope, at least, until that gets wrecked. And it has been wrecked before in the past. I'm just hoping that part of history doesn't repeat itself. But listen, Sports Illustrated came out, after Monday night and after all the announcements of The Rock and Netflix and what have you, that it was due to conversations with, how do they put it? It's always the people who are close to
a source close to Triple H.
A source close to Triple H, yes. That Cody will not be finishing the story, will not be in the main event, and will not be finishing the story at WrestleMania. One, I'm not sure who would just come out and say that. Why would you say that to people? You would just present what you are going to do, not tell them what you're not going to do, right? And even presented, it's going to be Cody and Punk, Gunther and Seth, Roman and Rock. Those are your three matches at WrestleMania that you're going to get. This is it. And there were even graphics made just right after that. WWE not happy with what was reported from a very reputable mainstream sports media talking about this, and they ended up, printing a retraction. And there was also even some notes from Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful Select, and I'm going to read part of that here, or maybe the majority of it here, to kind of make this all-encompassing. There are many rumors about the Royal Rumble, including some major ones that emerged this week. Per Sports Illustrated, there was word that Gunther was going to win the Royal Rumble, and claimed that he was slated to unseat Seth Rollins for the world title at WrestleMania. In addition, it was stated that Cody Rhodes was not slated for the main event of WrestleMania and would not be finishing his story. Those close to several sources mentioned in the article said that the adjustment would be news to them. Seth Rollins versus CM Punk was the active plan, at least as of last weekend. So Seth Rollins and CM Punk would be a WrestleMania match. That's kind of what we have felt. But I can see where if you're not getting firsthand knowledge, but you're just watching Raw, you can go, okay, they've switched. And somebody says, yeah, we're close to Triple H, or you assume they're close to Triple H, and they're confirming what you just saw. I can see why you might run with this. And a little bit later on, WWE officials would not confirm or deny any elements of the Sports Illustrated story, either on the record or on background. As one said, it would defeat the purpose of anything playing out on their weekly TV shows. That's exactly what. Why would you confirm or deny any of this? Just don't talk. Like, all of it should just be. You notice that nothing with The Rock has been leaked.
Yep.
Because there's literally 3 or 4 guys, and they're the top guys that make all the decisions, that know that it's happening. And you've got to get into a world where the real things that are happening are only happening with 3 or 4 guys. You keep the group small, because if you don't, these are the kind of things that are going to get leaked and misconstrued and end up in. Well, this one made it to a mainstream news source. Sean did defend. I don't know who the writer was. I'm sorry, I didn't look that up before. He did defend the writer, going, he's a really good dude. He just made a bad mistake.
Yep.
And, so I hope that that doesn't happen again from something like Sports Illustrated, not just for them, but just for wrestling fans in general, or reading stuff like this. I mean, it does take away a lot of the stuff that we're just investing in each and every week. Another piece of news this week, and I want to send best wishes to Kevin Patrick. He tried out for a lot of things in WWE, not a wrestling guy, a soccer guy. But he was on the SmackDown announce team, and has announced earlier that he was not going to be a part of that team anymore, and then announced later in the week that he is no longer with WWE. So he's a good dude. Seems like a good dude, and he's actually a great play-by-play guy. I just don't really think he fit that role the way they wanted him to, but he'll land on his feet somewhere doing something really cool in sports soon, I hope. So, all right, Royal Rumble tonight. It's about time to run over this. You want to do that?
Oh, let's do it.
We got a lot to talk about, and we'll do that next here on the Wrestle Chat podcast. Royal Rumble tonight. You notice I didn't do the phrase that costs you $1 million if you say it, that it involves the word rumble. We can't afford that here. Sorry about that. My hope in let's do this. After looking at it, and it makes sense. There's not a lot of matches. There's the women's Royal Rumble match. There's the men's Royal Rumble match. There's a Universal title match, and there is a U.S. title match. That's it. That's all we got, right? So let's run over those 4. That's all you need. I mean, you think about the Royal Rumble matches themselves. Women's is going to take at least an hour, at least. Men's is going to take at least an hour. There's 2 of your 3.5 to 4 hours.
I mean, if you look at the trajectory of the last 5 to 10 years, those things are running an hour 15, sometimes an hour 30, depending on what's going on.
Well, and it's not a drawn out hour 15, hour 30. You got. Things are changing every 90 seconds. Yep. So I am excited about this. Let's start with the Women's Royal Rumble match. I'll say that my hope in this is that we see Trinity, or in WWE, Naomi come back. Her contract is up with TNA, and if it does indeed end before tonight, if it ended yesterday, then there's a possibility we could see her. And I kind of think that's where everybody's leaning, is that Naomi shows up and has a big return. My hope is that Becky Lynch wins the whole thing. I'm not sure there's a challenger ready to go up against, Rhea at Mania. No one better than Becky in my mind. What are you thinking on the Women's Royal Rumble match, Michael?
That's tough. I can see where there's a lot of steam still behind Becky right now, but honestly, I've kind of got this gut feeling, and I'm actually not going to put any names on it. I feel like we could see a massive underdog win on the women's side. Somebody that's either a fresh NXT call up or somebody that's been hovering, that's done good work around, a little bit further more down the roster. I'm not thinking it's going to be one of the big players. I've heard a lot of scuttlebutt that it might be Bayley as she transitions out of the damage control thing that we've kind of been seeing teased to maybe position her for another run. But I've kind of just got this gut feeling that it might be somebody that we don't expect. Who? Not going to name any names, but I think it could be surprising.
Playing it safe, aren't you?
I'm playing it safe.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, you brought up Breaking Ground, and I watched that series back again. I remember watching it when it first came out, but watching it back again and seeing people like Bayley on there, and just, one, a completely different character, but just a kid when she went into to Breaking Ground, went into NXT, probably Florida Championship, or what was it, FCW? Is that what it was? She may have been a part of that, but it was interesting to see people like her, so young, and then now to see where she is today. Let's move over to the U.S. Championship match. This is Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens. I think that they are building something with Logan Paul here. Let me hold this up while we talk about this. They don't pay us yet, do they?
Well, they have to now because we featured it, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay, then I will hold it. I think they're building something with Logan Paul here. He signed a new contract with WWE. At least that's what he claims on Instagram late this past week. And I think you leave the title on Logan through Mania. Mania, obviously, your biggest event of the entire year, and one of your highest profile celebrities in all of WWE is holding that title, and he beats one of your biggest guys. He beats Kevin Owens. That's a big deal for Logan Paul to do, and I think that's what happens at the Royal Rumble tonight.
I definitely don't think it's clean, though. I do think Logan's coming out with the win. I think we could. I'm just waiting for Jake to show up. I mean, why would he not, right?
Maybe this is it, too.
Maybe
this could be it. Yeah.
And what better way than to have Jake involved in the finish at the Royal Rumble, and then Jake being able to be with his brother at WrestleMania for another match. And so yeah, I don't think it's clean, but I agree. I think Logan is coming out with the win.
There was a confrontation, and Conor McGregor and somebody else in UFC. This was a few years ago, where a stool was thrown through a window in a bus. And do you remember all this?
Vaguely, yeah.
This is exactly what it looked like on social media, or what it reminded me. It didn't look like it. It reminded me of it. While Logan Paul is training at the Performance Center, and Kevin Owens comes in. I did read something this week is that WWE is looking to incorporate some more realistic sports elements into their shows. And if your sister company is the UFC, they are borrowing from each other anyway. Mm-hmm. This looked a lot like they got into a fight. All that to say, they got into a fight. If you haven't watched it, you should check it out. But like a pull apart right there in one of the training rings. And it just reminded me of that Conor McGregor pull apart from he and whoever it was that he was going to be going up against. There was just no shattered glass and no thrown stools, but it could have easily gotten there, I think. But I'm excited to see where that goes. And maybe that's a two-parter or longer. Maybe it's something here at the Royal Rumble, something that happens maybe the third match or at Elimination Chamber, and the third match happens at WrestleMania. That'd be kind of cool. Yep. Let's move over to the Undisputed Universal title match. We've got AJ Styles, LA Knight, Randy Orton, and Roman Reigns. Listen, it's weird to go into something like this because I don't think anyone, and maybe you feel differently, tell me if you do, but I don't think there's anyone that think there's a realistic chance that Roman Reigns doesn't leave there with the title. This would be a good place to maybe tease Damian Priest cashing in, though. We talked about that in the last couple of weeks, that he hasn't done that. He hasn't, and maybe simply because Roman just hasn't been around, so you can't really tease him doing that. But this would be a good one. He's facing 3 other guys. Well, you wear down Roman Reigns, maybe that there's another guy involved in the match now, and he doesn't have to beat Roman Reigns to win it, and that's Damian Priest. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think a tease could happen. Logically, it would make sense that this is the place that Damian might at least look at cashing in that briefcase. What are you thinking about this match?
You know, it's interesting because you can tell that in a lot of their booking around Roman Reigns, they're trying to make us believe that there's the possibility. I mean, when you enter a fatal 4-way, you know, you're not going, oh yeah, the guy's walking out champion. And so, yeah, but you know, there's that part of me. There is that part of me that goes, look, one of the biggest misconceptions that people have made about Cody Rhodes over the last 2 years is that Roman Reigns has to be a part of Cody finishing the story. He doesn't. That is the reality. Cody finishing the story has nothing to do with Roman Reigns. And so there is that little part of me that's like, maybe they do throw the title on Randy. Maybe they do have Randy carried into Mania, so you know Rock and Reigns can carry a story, you know, all by itself. Am I playing a hardcore devil's advocate right now? Yes,
of course you are.
Yes, I am. But you know, I can't say that there's not justification to see the title change, but nonetheless, I find it highly unlikely.
Men's Royal Rumble match. It's the last one. This is where I think we have, you know, the most anticipation and the biggest chance for just the roof blowing off this place. Many stories will be told in this match, which we documented last week in some of our predictions. You know, I think we're going to see a lot of things spin out just from this one match, as we do every year, but this one probably more anticipation for that than any other year. I think it's any of the top guys match as far as winners go. I don't think there's, as you mentioned with the women's, there might be an underdog, somebody that you don't expect to win comes up and wins it. I don't think we have that with the guys. It's going to be somebody that we have in the spotlight right now, but I have a feeling they are going to do something with The Rock. And I'm going to predict, I mentioned it in the last match. I'm going to go out on a limb, though, and I'm not sure how big of a limb that really is going out on, but that Rock comes in and wins this thing just to blow everything up. How are you feeling about the Men's Royal Rumble match, Michael?
I don't know. The last several years have been fairly predictable. I would say minimum the last 3 to 5 years.
Sure.
You could kind of call who you thought
definitely
was,
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who you thought was going to win it. This year, to your point, there's just a lot of ways it could go. We've heard a lot about CM Punk. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear a lot about Gunther. There's still Cody. You know, there's The Rock. You know, there's guys like Drew McIntyre who still haven't disappeared from the main event picture. And while I think the Drew McIntyre is unlikely, you can't rule it out. And so, and again, with 2 world titles, it varies even more because, yeah, you'll have some people that will identify a route with Roman Reigns, but you'll have some people that identify a route with Seth Rollins. And so I think the safe prediction right now is CM Punk. I don't think there's any situation Cody wins the Rumble. I don't. I think that however that transpires is going to be outside of the Rumble situation. In terms of a not safe pick, I would probably go with The Rock with you, just because that would make sense as the lead-in to Mania, and it would give The Rock a little bit more established cred as he goes up against Roman Reigns. So I would say my safe pick, CM Punk, my unconventional pick, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Well, this is why this premium live event is so exciting. It just really is a lot of fun to think about all the things that could happen. And then maybe more importantly, the surprises that happen that you weren't even thinking about. Yep. And the biggest thing is counting down, especially when you get down to, 10 seconds. You got 10 seconds before somebody else's music hits and you see somebody else walk through that big Titantron. Who is that going to be? Is it someone that you thought it was going to be? Or is it someone completely unexpected. I mean, we haven't even talked about Okada. There's a possibility that Okada could actually be in WWE. If you don't know his name, you need to go look him up. If you're going, how do you not know his name? You know what I'm talking about. That's something that is realistic. And it's something that I don't think that just indie fans or New Japan fans can go, oh, no, he's going to AEW. He absolutely has to go to AEW. He doesn't. $5 billion says that he doesn't. And this guy could be... If the deck is not already stacked, it definitely would be with an addition like that. And again, if you don't know what we're talking about, just look him up, because it could be a big deal for him and for WWE just to add to what they already have. And that's one of those things that could happen tonight at the Royal Rumble live on Peacock. Man, I'm looking forward to, I like on these PLEs to tweet along and just chime in on things. So if you're on Twitter or X or whatever you call it, I'll be there too. You can follow me at the AntMan, TheAntMan, the AntMan, and we'll be tweeting during. Michael, you may pop on every once. I don't know how active you are on Twix. But
I'm a lurker, not a poster, so I'll pop my head out and prairie dog a little bit.
And say hi. Okay, that'd be perfect. Well, we're looking forward to it tonight, and looking forward even more to talking about everything that happens next week here on the Wrestle Chat Podcast. We'll see you then.